So you've just set up a new AWS account and you want to start building your next application on it. But hold on a second. Let me show you what are the 10 things that I do when I set up a new AWS account. Now, there's going to be a couple of shortcuts we take. I've set up a couple of things beforehand, but we're going to go through this step by step. And don't worry, all of these steps are documented inside a repo that we'll share in the description of this video below. So with that, let's quickly cover what we will do when we set up our account. The first thing is set up the multi-factor authenticator for your root user. The second one is to enable Cost Explorer so we can dig into what services we're using and what the costs are. Then we're going to enable IAM Identity Center, which will allow us to create users and groups and give them permissions on the different accounts that we are going to be using. Next, we're going to enable the Cost Optimization Hub. And then we're going to start setting up our infrastructure for automation. So we're going to be using Terraform today, along with AWS Code Build, and that will make it so that we can create pull requests on a GitHub repo to be able to basically see what changes we want to make to our infrastructure before we make them, check that everything is okay, and then approve them. And once they've been approved and merged in, we're going to see how it automatically rolls out. Once that is in place, we're going to add two more things, which is a budget, which will allow us to get an alert when our account reaches a certain threshold. I'm going to configure it to $10, and it'll alert me when I hit 75% of that amount. And then we're also going to enable CloudTrail, which allows us to see any action taken inside our account. So it's a good way to keep an eye on what things are going on. And then for the last part, we're going to show you how to use the user that we create in Identity Center to set up your local AWS environment so you can interact with it using your personal computer, laptop, or desktop, or whatever you're using to build. So with that, let us go. So I'm quickly just going to show you on the screen here. These are the steps we're going to be following. But this document in the repo has got all the steps that we're going to follow, and you can just follow along step by step and copy and paste. Now, I've taken a bit of a shortcut and set up some of these initial ones. So in my GitHub organization that I'm going to be using, I've already created the GitHub repo called AWS Infra. It's a private repo. It's got nothing in it. And then I've also already set up the fine-grained personal access token in GitHub that we're going to be using. Then I have also run the initial steps to install Terraform and then add our GitHub token to the parameter store, created an SSH key so I can use Cloud Shell to actually interact with my GitHub account, and then also just set the usual convenience, my name, my email, and then cloned the repo and then created a folder called Terraform inside it. Now, just quickly, Cloud Shell. What you're seeing in front of you is inside the AWS console. So if you look at the normal view like this, you can just click on Cloud Shell there, and then you can make it into a full screen version over here that we'll be using to do all of our interactions today. The reason is that you've kind of got this chicken and egg problem. You want to create infrastructure you want to automate your infrastructure, but to do that, you need infrastructure to run that automation for you. So to deal with that chicken and egg problem, what we're going to be doing is using a module that I've published in Terraform that allows us to bootstrap our account in a way that we have to do very little work. So let's get going. So you're first going to click in the top right and then go to Security Credentials to set your multi-factor authenticator. Then next, you're going to click on Billing and Cost Management. On the left here, you're going to go to Cost Explorer. This will now enable it. It'll take a day to kick in, but then we are good to go. Next, we need to enable Identity Center. So let's go there. Now, this is where you need to make your first choice. Which region do you want to deploy your infrastructure in? Identity Center can only be deployed in a single region per account, so you need to pick the one that makes the most sense for you. In my case, I'm going to be using Oregon. It's in US West 2. So just make sure that you're in the right region here by looking at this little drop-down. Now we're just going to go ahead and say Enable. We're going to use the default option to enable it for organizations. AWS Organizations is just a way for you to manage multiple AWS accounts, which we'll cover in some future videos where if you want to split, let's say, your dev environment with your production environment. Cool. So we're going to go ahead and say Continue. Okay. Now that this is up, there is a setting here that you want to set, which is this access portal URL. So click on the edit button and give this some kind of name that makes sense. So I'm going to go for videos, and then you paste it down here as well, and you click save. This URL is the one that we're going to use later when we configure our AWS CLI to interact with. And if you want to log into the console with your IAM Identity Center user, this is the URL you'll use to get to the login screen. So make it something friendly that makes sense for you. And now the last thing we're going to do in the console with the clicking is go back to our main page. And then if you scroll down a little bit, you will see here is the Enable Cost Optimization Hub. So click that button, and then we say enable it and make sure that it's for this account and all member accounts. That should be the default. Enable. Okay. Now we are good to go. So we're going to start building out our infrastructure. Now I've already installed Terraform. I've set up my GitHub personal access token, created an SSH key that'll allow me to check out the repo that we've created because it's a private repo. Then I've set my username and my name and my email address, and then also done a checkout of that repo, and then just made a Terraform folder inside that repo. So let us quickly start building. Okay, as you can see here, and just to show you in the previous, in the folder above, it's completely empty at this point. So the first step we have to do is we have to create a file called bootstrap.tf. In here, we are going to paste a module called bootstrap. So like that. What this does is it pulls down this module, and you can go look at the code there if you're interested. But basically, we're telling it to set up the state file for Terraform using the US West 2 region. We're giving that state file bucket a name, and then we're telling it that we are going to be setting up all of our other infrastructure inside this specific AWS region. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, when you add any new modules, or you want to use a provider with Terraform, you have to run Terraform init. What this does is pull down the providers, like you can see here, the local provider to create files on the disk, and then also the AWS provider to interact with AWS. Then it's also going to pull down the module that we want to use. Okay. Now we can run Terraform apply. Normally you would want to do a plan, but we're doing a speed run here. Okay, this is all the resources that we need to store our Terraform backend. It's basically an S3 bucket to store the state file, a DynamoDB table to allow us to create a lock when we want to run Terraform plan or apply, and then also an IAM policy that will pass through to the second module to set up our pipeline. That IAM policy allows the code build jobs that we're going to set up to interact with the state file and also create a lock when they are running. So what also happened now is if we look at this folder, we can see that there are two new files. It is the providers file, and this just defines the versions of the providers that we want to use and the Terraform version, and then also the Terraform file, which configured our backend for us. Now we're going to run Terraform init one more time, because what this will do is actually then pick up that where our backend configuration has changed and copy the state file from the local disk here into the S3 bucket for us, so we don't lose it. So now we need to edit our Bootstrap file again, and we are going to add in our module for the code build jobs that we need, that we'll use for our CI/CD pipeline. So this is a different module in that same GitHub repository. You can see that we've set it up to use our GitHub organization called Not Quibus Not Darko. It's going to use the GitHub repository. Now, if you do not have a GitHub organization, this will just be your GitHub username. Then we're going to use the same region again for these code build jobs, and then that IAM policy that I spoke about to give the code build jobs access to the Terraform state file. This is how we reference it from the previous module that we've used. And then we set it to Terraform version 1.9.7. Okay, and with that out of the way, we need to run Terraform init again because there's a new module that we want to use. And if there were any new providers, it'll also pull that down again now. So there we go. Now another Terraform apply. Okay, so now we've got a basic infrastructure in place, so let's not lose these changes. So we're going to go git add. Okay, now we want to make our first change, which is setting up the AWS CloudTrail to allow us to see any changes in our account. So for that, I'm going to do that on a new branch. Okay, similar to before, we've got a different module that we're going to be using. We're going to tell it that we want the same region as before. We're going to give it a specific name to use to store the files in. And then lastly, we're going to give the trail itself a name to use. In this case, we're going to call it all accounts. So let's go ahead and add that. So now, instead of running Terraform locally, we don't need to anymore. So we can go add this. I can never remember this command, so I normally just do git push and then copy and paste the command. Okay, so now if we go to our repo here, we'll see that there's a new push. So we're going to create our pull request. So what you can see here is that our build has actually started. So let's have a look over here. We can actually see this job. Sorry, the console looks a bit weird when it's this enlarged. So you can start seeing the plan of what it wants to apply. Now, this is not an easy way to review our change. So what this job will do is once it's completed, you can see over here that there's now a little check mark. There we go. That says it's good. It'll actually add this comment to your pull request for you to review. And over here, you can see that we passed all of the tests that we wanted to do for this pull request. And if we look inside the actual plan, we can see what it wants to create. So it's going to create a policy for the CloudTrail bucket and all the resources. So this is where you would review this and make sure it's the infrastructure changes you would want. So we're going to go ahead and just say merge. And then we can delete this branch. Now what we can see is if we go back to code build, we'll see there are two projects. The one is Terraform Plan and the other one is Terraform Apply. Now currently Terraform Apply is running. So this is going to create that CloudTrail for us in the background while we continue working. So going back to Cloud Shell. So going to go to our main branch again. We're going to pull the latest changes that we just merged. And we're going to say git checkout we're going to use identity center.tf to add our identity center. Now this one is a bit of a long one to add, so I am just going to paste it in for a second and then we can take a quick look at it. Okay, so what we're doing here is we are using a Terraform data source to get our current, the account ID, because we have to reference that further down. And then what we're doing is we are setting up two groups. The first one is called admin, the second one is called developers. Then we're going to define two users, Mary Major and John Doe. Then we're going to set up the permission sets. This is where we basically define what can you do in a specific account. So you can see here we're calling the first one administrator access, and we are attaching the IAM policy administrator access, which allows full access to the AWS account. And the second one is view only access, and we're going to use the view only access IAM policy that's built in. You can obviously configure these with whatever values makes the most sense for your specific setup, or add more, or however you want to slice and dice it. Then what we're doing is the account assignments. Now we've set up those IAM policies to say what are people allowed to do. Now what we need to do is to say, okay, those policies are allowed to be used on which accounts. So in our case, we've only got one account at the moment, so we're going to apply it to our current account here. So that's how we set up the link the permission between those that we set up above this. So just to clarify quickly, for the admin user, we're going to give it admin access as well as view only access. Even though view only access in this case isn't specifically needed, it's nice to see it there because you can then keep an eye on exactly who's got what permissions. And then for developers, we're going to say they only have view only access because they should be using our CI/CD pipeline to create any infrastructure changes. So, and then the last part is we then actually call the module, which is an existing module in the Terraform registry. And this just sets up all of our infrastructure for us. So we're going to add that. Once again, we create a pull request. And now we just wait for the job to finish. Okay, so now we can see here that once again, our build is actually passed. We can look at the plan. It's going to be a very long one with everything in here for Identity Center that we just defined. And there we go. We are going to say, let's merge this, confirm merge. Okay, delete that branch. Now, while that's being applied, we're going to add our final step to our infrastructure. Okay, and once again, we're going to be using a module, and then you just need to add your email address. Okay, we're not going to push this yet. I just want us to double check that our job's actually completed. So our apply job is currently still running. So we'll be fine to actually do a push to our branch because that's a separate build job. You can set the concurrency of your builds. It shouldn't cause any issues, but it's always good to keep an eye on what's going on with Terraform. Okay, if we're lucky now, we might actually have that race condition where the PR is trying to check what changes need to be made while the apply is running, and that should be prevented because of that lock table we have with DynamoDB. So let's quickly see if we were in time. No, we just missed it. Okay, once again, we succeeded. So this is all good. Let me actually just, while we are here, just quickly show you what will happen if I make a mistake. So let's say I just go do that. So what we can see over here is that the formatting and styling failed, the initialization failed because it's not valid code, as well as the planning. So if we look at the error output, what we can see over here is that it tells us, well, there's something dodgy on line 4. So that's how you would fix it. Now I'm going to quickly go and fix that, push it, merge it. But now the last step that we need to do is to configure our AWS CLI. Now I'm just going to show you how to do it here in Cloud Shell, but it'll be the same after you've installed the AWS CLI locally. So to set that up, we're going to need the URL that we set in our identity center. So let's quickly go back. Now the console has actually changed to the different region, which is why I don't see my identity center. So let's just switch back to Oregon. Now we can go down here. I can copy that URL. So now I can go AWS configure SSO, and it'll ask me for a session name. Let's say Quibus dev, and then it's going to ask me for a start URL. So you paste that in, and then after you press enter, now it'll ask you for the region and one or two more things, and then basically you're almost good to go. The final step you have to do is go to that URL that we just pasted in the screen, and then try and log in with your email requesting to reset your password. Because the way this works is that we don't mail around a password for you to access the account. You've now got it's linked to your email address as specified inside the identity center file that we set up. So if you go and look at our identity center over here, you'll see I've left the top one visible. So you can see, for example, this is an example email of Mary Major. So you would use that email to log in, reset your password. And then once you're logged in, when you complete that configuration of your CLI, you'll then go AWS SSO login, and then it'll redirect you to check in the browser if you want to enable the access to your session, and then you are good to go. So I hope you enjoyed this. This was a bit of a rush to get finished in a short amount of time, but like I said at the start of you can actually see all of the steps in here along with the actual code in the modules. The GitHub organization is called build-on or build-on-AWS, and the repo name is Terraform Samples. So if you want to see me do some more Terraform videos, or if you have any ideas of what I should cover in future videos, just drop some comments down below, or open an issue for me on this repo. I'd love to hear your feedback. And lastly, if you can hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, that'll be great, because we want to make some more awesome content for you. Thanks.